inaugural Women in AI panel, featuring a lineup of esteemed technology leaders. With Meenu Gaba, Senior Engineering Director of ML at Google, Anitha Vijayakumar, Director of Engineering at Google, Indira Negi, Senior Advisor at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Nika, AI Product Lead Reality Labs at Meta. Guiding our discussion is moderator Sakshi Gupta, Women Techmakers Ambassador.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
should we match?
you're looking good. All right, thank you so much, everyone who is joining us for the panel today, and most importantly, all the panelists, thank you so much. I know our AI quickly introduced you, but I'd love to hear from you a little bit about what you do and particularly what you're proud of. So why don't we start with you, Harilee?
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. So I was actually a Googler for 8 years, and it feels amazing to be back. It feels like I'm back home. So I did AI before it was cool. I did a Ph.D. in machine learning back in 2011, and then I joined Google as a product manager in speech, so speech recognition. Back then, speech recognition was not a product. We were tasked to figure out what on earth to do to solve user problems by leveraging speech technology, and it was super cool. 8 years later, I joined Meta, Meta's Reality Labs. My organization was called Avatars and Identity, and we were building embodied versions of ourselves. And that was a whole new world of AI because we had hardware, we had sensors, we had figuring out, what the digital representation of ourselves looks like and how to build products for the users. So that's who I am, and thank you for having me.
Of course. Love to have you on the panel. Next, we have Indra.
Thanks, Sakshi. I think I can recognize some of the people who saw me here in the mornings, but again, I am at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I'm a senior advisor. I set up the devices and AI investment team at the Gates Foundation. Before that, I was very much focused on drugs and vaccines. What I'm most proud of is what I was talking about in the morning. So in case you missed it, we've made huge investments in using AI to essentially provide early scan ultrasound to every woman on Earth. And we've made enough investments that we're very confident that this will be a reality in 3 to 4 years from now.
Wow. Nice. Sounds amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Next up, we have Anitha.
Hi, I'm Anitha. I've been at Google for like 12 years now, forever almost. I lead the ML inference engineering team. I've been in machine learning for the last 7-8 years. It started when Jeff Dean was saying, hey, you can detect cat videos, you can detect cats looking at YouTube videos. And that just sounded like a fun project. And it said, oh, we can go have some fun while working. And that's how I started. Did a lot of work on TensorFlow, TensorFlow Lite, and now leading the infrastructure engineering for ML inference at Google. Thank you.
That's amazing. We always want to identify cats in the videos. So amazing. Next up, we have Meenu.
Hi, my name is Meenu Gaba. I lead the machine learning infrastructure team at Google. I have been at Google for almost 17 years now, mostly worked on building back-end infrastructure systems for search, and a few years ago joined machine learning, and super excited. Lots of accomplishments in machine learning. The ultrasound project you're talking about, some of it was built using the open source technology that Google has. It is changing lives every single day. There are so many heartwarming stories, and that's what is the most exciting part for me. Every day when you get up, people are solving real world problems, all the way from, recently I read there is a toothbrush, AI-powered toothbrush. It tells you whether you have brushed enough and whether you have brushed the right sides and if you have left any spot. Such mundane problems from that all the way to figuring out how to solve cancer. So it's very, very heartwarming how AI is changing the world and being part of the team that is making it happen.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. This is amazing to hear what you are working on right now, but really curious to hear from you. What inspired you to start a journey in AI? Were there any particular instances that you felt like this is the right moment? Or you just went with the flow. So would love to hear from, we can start with Indira.
Great. I was just thinking about what to say. I have to say that I don't think I was seeking out working in AI. I was seeking out working in healthcare at scale, which hopefully is inspiring enough on its own. I wanted to do something that mattered. Time is our only currency, and we all have to choose what to do with the limited time we have here. So I wanted to reduce suffering at scale, and I think healthcare is one of the places you can do that. And AI has kind of forced its way into health technology. So it's not like I was seeking out AI, but it is now what we work on.
So AI seeked you. That's amazing. All right, we can next move on to Anitha.
Yeah, my story is something similar to. I was not seeking to find like let's go work on the coolest ML project. This was before ML was cool at that time, and it was just that I was looking to work on something fun and exciting, and talk to this team, and people looked fine. The projects look fine. I don't understand a lot of things, but maybe I can figure this out kind of story was how I got into it. Was almost by accident. I think I didn't go out looking for it at all. So, yeah.
My introduction to AI was, actually, I was seeking AI. So a little different from them. When I was in search infrastructure, one of the things I did was, I did a brainstorming session with like over 100 people to figure out what can machines do better than humans. And that's where I wanted to start with, like, hey, machines are good at some things that humans are not good at. Why don't we use machines to do those? Let's figure out where we can use machine learning. When I interviewed and brainstormed with people, I got like hundreds and hundreds of ideas. And then when I started to like, okay, let me start with one idea and see if it is going to pan out. This was many years ago. And we spent 6 to 9 months trying to experiment with that idea. And when the idea didn't bear any fruit, AI machine learning was still immature. It was way too expensive for me to be able to use machine learning in things that machine learning should be used for. I was like, okay, if I'm using 6 to 9 months to experiment with one idea and I have hundreds, there is a problem. I need to do something. So that's when we started like, okay, we need to take machine learning to the same place where normal software development is, a cycle where you can iterate fast and quick and you can experiment more. And that's how I got into ML.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Harili, you're up next.
So my path was kind of different. I always loved computer games, and growing up, I would play chess, and I would try to beat, the most difficult level. And I would play StarCraft, same thing. So I knew I wanted to study gaming because I could train models to beat other people. Like that's what I wanted to do always. So I did a PhD in machine learning, and I always thought I would get into gaming. But after graduating from my PhD, Google is like, oh, we use AI for all these other ways. And I was mind blown that AI can empower so many experiences, even back then. So now that we live and breathe in AI, it's kind of a surprise. Like, I wish I could go back to my younger self and say, hey, what you're choosing to study right now is going to be the best possible career that you ever imagined. So,
wow, that's amazing. We have come a long way. On the same note, I would love for you to share what is the core of the technology that you're working on, you're building on. So why don't we start with Meenu? I know you have briefly touched upon this, but would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so what my team does is basically create reusable building blocks. So machine learning developers can easily, quickly put together machine learning applications. To shorten the life cycle that I talked about, took me 9 months to experiment with one idea. I wanted that cycle to be very, very short. So I have infrastructure teams that deal with data, that deal with training, that deal with inference, and trust, safety, and compliance, all the basic building blocks in a machine learning application.
Interesting. Anitha, you can. I
thought you were going to go this way.
Yes, okay.
So I am in Meenu's team, and I lead the inference parts that Meenu was talking about. So essentially, once you have an idea, you have a model, and you want to put it into production at scale and democratize this so that you can allow serving ML inference requests at the cheapest cost, at the lowest latency, and as quickly as possible. So what are the techniques that you can do? What are the different infrastructure improvements that you can do so you can actually bring down the cost and actually serve these models, sometimes large models, and at scale. And that's exactly what a lot of optimization and inference work is what my team does.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Indira.
All right. Well, Bill and Melinda Gates is a funding organization, and so you have to think of my team as a funder, and we have a portfolio of things we invest in. We don't develop technology. We're not an execution body. I'm in the past engineer, actually, I should have said. When I was in grad school, I was working on a neuromorphic chip, and I really didn't think that technology was going to go anywhere. Could have stuck with it. But what we work on is finding the right problems that we believe have the highest impact in terms of death and disability is how we measure impact. And then seeing if there are technology solutions that can affect that problem. And so that's sort of the evolution of how we choose. And then given that is the situation, ultrasound and AI in ultrasound is one of the places that we've invested in. Similarly, monitoring of labor and pregnancy are other places where we've invested. So it's not, I mean, we don't do core technology development, but we fund the direction in which we want technology development to go.
Of course, that's very interesting. And we would touch upon the impact that you just quickly mentioned later, but thank you for mentioning that. Marilee, you're next.
All right, so in terms of algorithms, it's real-time, live, drivable representations of the way we look. So this is what an avatar is like. Have people ever created an avatar in any platform? Okay. So this concept just fascinates me, the fact that we can have a digital representation within the metaverse, regardless of company or app or anything like this. So there is a lot that goes behind being able to create this representation and animate it in the same manner that we move. So the most recent launch we had was the announcement of codec avatars. I don't know if anyone watched, there was a video about the metaverse. It's an avatar that looks exactly just like we do right now, a realistic representation. And if you imagine the amount of data that goes behind rendering something like this and animating it, it's fascinating. So we're talking about petabytes. And so from a strategy perspective, product managers work with the people that empower this technology, and we try to take the technology to solve user problems. So it's one thing to create the ability to have a nice avatar, but like, what do we do with it? So we come up with the use cases, the problems, and it's an incredibly impactful job, and I love being a product manager, so I strongly recommend it to folks.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. All of you mentioned really great things you're building with AI and the technology, really. But if you talk about the impact, one, are you able to measure that impact? Today, maybe it's difficult, but if you are able to measure the impact, how do you measure it? What is the positive impact that you are creating on people, businesses, products, services, really in any domain related to the core technology that you're working on? Why don't we start with Indira?
All right, I think that's good, right? Because we actually do spend a lot of time thinking about how do we measure impact. And we have a score, just like a financial sheet that you use to choose whether you're going to invest here or not. We use something called DALYs, which is disability adjusted life years. So if you bring an intervention to a country that didn't have it before, say you bring this ultrasound, how many disability adjusted life years will you gain? So save a young pregnant mother, you're going to gain a lot of disability adjusted life years. And that's one of the reasons why something like cardiovascular disease doesn't become a priority, because it comes later in life and you will save fewer years. So I hope that makes sense. But I mean, there's a lot of modeling, right? You have to model what would happen if this intervention didn't come, and you have to also take into account what the country's political and health system is, in fact. So there's a lot of guesswork, just like financial modeling. But that's how we measure the impact of any new drug, vaccine, device intervention.
I have a follow-up. Is that easier to create that impact as opposed to a technology if you were building one? You mentioned how you're not developing or executing and versus funding. So do you feel by funding these systems, are you creating a bigger or much larger impact?
Well, so as long as you have I think the right experts making the funding decisions, I think yes, you are. Sometimes it scares me. I mean, I've been an advisor with the foundation for I joined 4 years ago. Unofficially, I've been talking to them for 7 years, advising over proposals. And when I joined full time, it scared me how large an impact a small thought could have, right? It could be, it's a small organization. And I was one of the first sort of medical device related person there. And so I could have a very small thought and that would get bigger and bigger and at some point reach a place where we would go ahead and invest in something like that. So you have to be quite measured in what you recommend. But frankly, I think it speaks a little bit to the sad state of affairs that the Gates Foundation is such a large entity in global healthcare funding that it has such a huge voice. So I'll go back to the ultrasound example right now. Nobody was investing in maternal ultrasounds. It was just not a priority for the medical device community. It's not a big moneymaker. And then when we did our big investment in, say, Philips, which is one of the companies, and this is all public information, it just suddenly became a higher priority for all other device manufacturers as well. And it somehow led to the fact that the government started investing in it, USAID started investing in it, and it sort of raised all boats, which is why this is going to become a reality in near time. So yes, I think depending on how much funding you're putting into it, you can definitely drive the scale, which is why, sorry, I'm speaking for so long, but which is why I think that issue of not enough women being represented in the investment, VC funding, etc., all of that also plays into this, because when you don't have people represented who you want to build things for, you're never going to get to building things for them.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Go for it. Interesting. And now I think, Anitha, why don't you share more?
I just wanted to say, when we started with TensorFlow and we were figuring out how to measure impact, it was not as deep as what Indra put it. We looked at GitHub stars. So we started with, saying, hey, we have this many stars, so maybe the product is doing well and everything. And then, unfortunately, there was a year later or so, there was a huge tsunami in Indonesia. And the government of Indonesia just sent us an email and said, hey, can you please deploy your early warning system for tsunami detection? And this was a research paper somewhere, and the government officials reached out to you. You're sitting in Mountain View in some corner doing something as an engineer, and here, halfway across the world, people are like, can you help us save lives? So it was kind of a moment in time. Then we realized that what you do can have such a large and profound impact. And it can actually impact the lives of so many people that you've not even imagined before. So, it is on a day-to-day basis, when you look at it, we are like, oh, the cost of this token is higher, the cost of this token is lower. We are talking in those terms. But actually, if you sit back, take a step back and see the technology that you're building, being a part of a team that creates groundbreaking change is really heartwarming and very impactful that way.
That sounds amazing. Were we able to help? Okay, go for it. Were we able to help Indonesia?
Our research team and our comms team reached out to do some work with them and give some early, for flood warning and other things.
That's amazing.
And expand this to, even wider reach. But it's still deploying the technology at scale where it's on your phone, it can alert you, and a day in advance that we still have work to do to get there.
That's amazing. That's a great impact.
Can I jump in and say, the ultrasound work that now is going to be a product, actually the initial proof of this can be done, we actually did with the Google, Jeff Dean team.
Google Brain team?
Yes. So once it was proven that it can work, that's when the product companies were willing to go into it.
That's trailblazing. Amazing. Why don't we move to you, Marily?
I'm going to talk about avatars after tsunamis and healthcare. I don't know what to say. Okay, so when I was at Google, we would build ways for people to search the web without using their hands. So if someone has accessibility issues, or if someone does not know how to write, they could suddenly have access to world's information within Google. This is a huge impact. At Meta, what I was doing, it allows you to just remove borders, remove boundaries of distance. So I'm Greek, my parents are in Greece. Being able to talk to them virtually and just feeling like they're sitting right there next to me, even though we're in completely different continents, is massive impact. But I feel that on my day-to-day, where the most impactful is I actually teach people how to become AI product managers, and I have a bootcamp that I teach, and the energy I'm getting from people that are thirsty to learn how to work in this environment is where I find my own impact. So education, and I really want to continue this and scale it as much as I can.
That's amazing. I see that there is a theme that AI is not, the impact of the AI is not numbers, really. It's humans and it's lives. And so I think that's the best takeaway, at least for me, from this session. Amazing. We'll hear from Meenu as well about the impact.
I think you summarized it really well. The impact is not in numbers. The opportunities that machine learning AI has unlocked are limitless. And we don't have all the creative brains to come up with those technology, like at least I don't. So what I can do is enable people to iterate on those ideas very, very quickly. And that's what we provide. So how do we measure? How many developers can actually use? How do we democratize ML and AI so more people can solve these novel problems? Whether it is helping a drummer play again after losing an arm. I don't know whether you've heard that story or not. So heartwarming. When drummer, he had an accident, lost his arm. Drumming was his passion. We built a model for him, put it in the prosthetics, so his shoulder movements can predict how to beat the sticks on the drum, and he was able to play drums again. This was not possible before. There are so many stories like this. I mean, whether it's a toy science project or real life problems. Saving coral reef in Australia. I haven't visited it yet, and I want my kids to be able to visit it. My son is right now creating a machine learning version of playing Catan. I don't know how many of you know play Catan. Yes. And I was like, okay, I want to beat it. So there are fun projects and there are real projects. How many people can use ML on regular basis to solve problems? We want ML to be in an ice cream shop, to create new flavors everywhere. And this is how we will have the impact that ML actually has potential to have, to enable all those developers. There are 30 million developers, software developers. And why just limit to software developers? My son is not a software developer. He's in 7th grade. And he's using ML. He's using actual TensorFlow to create a bot for playing Catan. And this is like, it's limitless. And we want to enable that. And that's how we measure, like, how many people can you enable to solve real problems?
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I just got goosebumps. So I'm going to read this off of my phone. What, in your opinion, are important ethical considerations for developing and implementing AI systems in a responsible way? I think this is one of the most important questions because a lot of people and a lot of other sessions we have on the agenda are about building an app in 7 minutes, in 23 minutes. And while all of that sounds amazing, how do we do that ethically, I think, has to be on the agenda next time. But why don't we touch upon that very quickly today? We start with you, Meenu.
Sure. So it's a big, big responsibility. Generative AI is a paradigm shift. It's very disruptive, but it's also very, very risky. The onus is on all of us to produce technology that actually is safe, secure, and trustworthy. I don't know whether you have read a blog that Google recently posted on Safe, Secure AI Framework, which gives you guidance on how to make sure that your model, your technology that you're releasing is safe for economy, public, governments, everybody. How do you make sure it doesn't have biases? How do you make sure engineer can be a woman and a man? Engineer is not always a man. How do you make sure that a nurse could be feminine or masculine? How do you make sure that the technology is transparent? how do you make people, you owe it to people to trust the technology. So you need to tell people when the stuff is generated by AI or whether it is like human knowledge. That needs to be clear. I know White House is issuing a lot of mandates. Government is helping us to enforce these things. You need to make sure your technology is protected against internal attacks and also external cyber attacks. This is very disruptive technology. It's power, it's a lot of power, and we need to put it to good use. So we need to build trust as a primitive in all the infrastructure we are offering. Especially the big companies have this as a huge responsibility. I'm so glad the government is taking action and we have legislation and mandates to enforce that.
That's very powerful. Thank you for saying that. Indra.
I agree 100%. I think maybe there's still debate on how to regulate, but I think some level of reliability, especially for anything that's medical related, or financial, I think this morning people were talking about. I gave an example earlier, and I'll share it again, is where we have healthcare workers in India who are really like 10th grade educated, but they are providing some basic healthcare services in villages. And they've been given these chatbots that they're using as a source of knowledge, real-time co-pilot, basically. And they're assigning it, they're calling it sir, they're assigning it so much authority, and they're taking the recommendations of this LLM bot as gospel and not questioning it, even when it's like repeatedly giving incorrect answers. So I think there is a lot of danger for these things because they're so easy to use and implement into an application. I think there's a lot of danger that they get, they cause people to take incorrect medical or financial decisions. And some regulation to make sure that that doesn't happen, I think is very, regulation, education, et cetera, is very important. And then the bias, agree with the bias piece.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. We would touch upon how we do that. I know both of you have mentioned how we should do it, but before that, we'll hear from Merrily. And Merrily, why don't you go next?
Sounds good. And this is, I'm very happy we're addressing this. So I don't know if you saw that OpenAI announced the ability of creating custom GPTs. Okay, perfect. People did. Interestingly enough, today they closed the ability to purchase the Plus tier because they were at capacity, which is interesting. So I built 2 days ago an AI product GPT. I posted it on LinkedIn. If anyone is interested, go on my LinkedIn, you'll find it. And I told people, hey, what this does is you talk about an idea you have, and it outputs a Ph.D. in AI with mocks and so on. Perfect. And I trained it because I uploaded PDFs and books, and it knows about classification and AI and Ph.D.s and all these things. And people were like, oh, this is great, we tried it out. And then there's this one comment where this person said, what about the authors of the books? Do they know? Do they get credit? Would people pay? And I was just looking at this comment and my heart froze and I was kind of like, oh my God, I don't know. I had the ability to upload the PDF. The model got trained from this data and I got, an outcome out of it because people kept sharing it, people kept following me. So, there was a gain on my end, but they're not mentioned anywhere. So it was just a very interesting point because I fell in the trap. So what I did later is I have a little note to provide credit and so on. So I think transparency is something that goes beyond, like we always need to have it, transparency, tell people where we train the data, make sure it's only publicly available data. Number 2, train the users to understand what's going on and give them controls. So when I was working at Google, we gave the ability to users to delete their data at any point when they needed to. We had help center articles so that they can understand what we do. So if you give the power to users to understand what's going on, I think that helps. Number 3, fairness. Number 4, inclusivity. I was working in this other company and we didn't have enough data of one kind. The output was not very discriminatory. So yeah, it's all these challenges that we need to address. Discrimination, fairness, transparency. But yeah, it's interesting because I fell in the trap yesterday and I'm happy we're discussing it.
Happens to all of us.
Can I add over there?
Of course.
So OpenAI actually said that we'll go to court if you get into a copyright battle, right? Which is, I don't know, that means that go ahead, violate copyrights, and we will fight that battle for you in court, which is it's a very ethically gray position to take.
And Adobe said that the images they produce are only from licensed images. So I liked what Adobe said. But yeah, that's an interesting angle too.
I think it goes back to what Meenu said in the beginning, that the onus is on us. I mean, even if OpenAI says something else.
With great power comes great responsibility. So, we have to be sure that we take these things into account, especially when you're handling user data, giving controls. My team was involved in building some parts of the opt-out options when users were training. For the transparency pieces and everything, the technology still needs to move forward, and we need to make sure that things are predictable. You know what to expect. So you can actually, I think, all of them covered important topics in bias, misinformation, privacy, transparency, safety. As more and more critical applications, including life-saving applications, are being dependent on this, there is just no room for error here.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Just a quick time check. I'm going to ask one last important question, and then maybe we can open the floor for any questions. And before I do that, I'll just quickly mention that this Women in AI panel is not just for women. It's about AI panel, and we are giving the stage to some of the women who otherwise do not get a chance or the stage to speak about the great things they are doing in AI. So if you were wondering if this panel is about or only for women, it is not. It's for everyone who is building in AI. So that's bringing me to the last question. What advice would you give to aspiring AI innovators, not just women, who are just starting their journeys in technology and particularly in AI? Why don't we start with you, Meenu?
Me? Okay. So one of the common myths about AI is that you need to know calculus, math to be in the field of AI. That's not true. AI is such a vast field. I think one of the things you should really, really think about it, what are your transferable skills and what are you interested in? And if you find those two things, I can bet you that you can find a career in AI which will support those two. A lot of the skills that people have are easily transferable in AI. AI is not all about math. There are very few people who actually create models, like do the math part. Most of the people are involved in fine-tuning the model, using the model, and creating applications with the model. There's tons of roles and careers that you can build out of AI. So don't get scared that, oh, AI is all math. Initially, when I was not involved in ML, I used to have that like, oh, can I do it? Although I'm math major, but I was like, oh, I don't remember anymore all the calculus. Can I do it? But then I realized I didn't need to remember all that. I can still have a huge part in this revolution just by using my software engineering skills.
Thank you for sharing that. Meenu, sorry, Anitha, go for it.
Yeah, I do want to say just jump in. There is, and start learning as you go along. One of the things that we struggle the most is we don't have enough people working in ML. Finding talent is the hardest. And so you're all here. You've already taken a few steps already. So just jump right in and, learn as you go. And then there'll be no looking back. When I started, I did not know anything about ML, just like what Meenu said. And all of us started from somewhere, and all of us were where we didn't know something, and then we learned it over time. And just go right at it. And if there is a will, there is a way somewhere. So you will be able to get it.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Verily.
Okay, so a couple of things. I think AI has enabled lawyers to get into tech, artists to get into AI, engineers to become PMs. So my advice to people is no matter how many years you've spent in a profession, with AI, you can learn it and you can pivot to something else. It's perfectly okay to change a career, no matter what you've been doing, how long you've been doing it. And I think AI is enabling us to do this because we can learn with personalized content because we can start using AI in whatever we're doing now and then move to an adjacent role and use AI as the teeter. Say, well, I was an artist, I was in UX and I was leveraging AI. Oh, I can go become a PM to leverage AI in a different angle, if you know what I mean. So use AI as a vessel. And I've seen so many people do this. And especially when the market is kind of really difficult right now, being creative like that, I think can go a long way. So don't be afraid to get into it. If you don't know, learn. There are so many online tools. Reach out to me, reach out to us. We're here to help. But please don't say, oh God, this is too difficult, because it's not. All it is, it's training a model at the end of the day. It's about the strategy behind it on what you can do with it.
That's amazing. Thank you for
I
sharing.
should tweet this, the vessel.
So powerful. Indira.
All right, so I think you've heard from the people who are working on ML to work on ML, and then people who are using ML to use ML. I think if you don't want to work on ML, if you want to do that, you should definitely do that. But I think because you guys are doing such good work and making these tools so easy to use, I think just using ML has become so accessible to pretty much anyone. I think it raises a separate question of like, how safe are coding jobs? But I would say, I think now is the time to find the domain you're interested in. If it's healthcare you love, or if it's like robotics you love, or, you know, what is the domain that you love? Because I think AI is going to be table stakes. You guys have made it so easy to use AI. So use it for the thing that you want to build. Like think of it as like a computer. Like you would use a computer no matter what field you chose to solve a problem in.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So I think to summarize, I can safely say that to use AI, you do not have to know AI. You don't have to be a software engineer. And I will just plug in, we have so many sessions today where we are teaching you how to build a Gen AI product in a couple of minutes. So really, the advice is to not to be afraid and jump right into it. I think it was a very, very brilliant panel with all of you women building in AI and in all different domains. So thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't we give them a round of applause? Can we do questions? We can take some questions from the floor. All right. We have someone here in the front.
Thank you so much for an inspiring panel. I'm the author of an O'Reilly Media book on augmented and virtual reality, so I'm really glad that we recognize that maybe I'm not getting credit because my book is being fed into a data set, so thanks for that. My question is actually for Indira, and to I guess address any aspiring startup founders in the room. I'm using ChatGPT to help my mom build her startup advancing Alzheimer's research, and I wonder still, by orders of magnitude, how far we are from AGI. The brain is very complex, and you talked about building a neuromorphic chip. How do we know if we are failing in AI? Like obviously, you know, ChatGPT and OpenAI, people are making money based on tokens, but if you're trying to solve such a complex problem, it's hard, and I guess for me now having shut down my company, I'm wondering, like, I graduated into AI winter, and now it's AI spring. So I'm curious to know how you would talk to any aspiring founders, particularly like women in AI, of like, is this problem, am I gonna fail and then end up working somewhere else? Or am I going to, you know, go really big, or is it too hard?
Tell me if I got your question right. I think the first part of it is it a good time to found a company in and around AI? And I would say, dude, it is so low risk right now. Because even if you fail, you're going to be so valuable as an employee later. So definitely do it if you have the drive in you, if you have the fire, and you have a problem you're really passionate to solve. Is another part of your question whether AGI is almost here and whether you need is AGI necessary to the problem you're solving? Well, I mean, I think there are better experts in the room, but by all estimates, we're not far. What like estimates go between 6 months to 5 years, like roughly. I would say in terms of a neuromorphic architecture for training of models, our brains are slightly different. Our neurons are not arranged in layers, and we don't have a clock sending data from one layer of neurons to the next layer of neurons. They're asynchronous, and they all send data to everything that they're connected to. So I don't think on a chip level, we are going to be near AGI very soon, because we still rely on highly clocked chips. But I think in terms of like intelligence, AGI is not far. So if you're waiting for AGI or something close to AGI that you can do a quick check on before outputting information, you should definitely found it. I mean, you'll raise money. And that'll give you enough runway to get to a solution. The downsides are very low. My opinion, it's not financial advice.
The disclaimers are here. Perfect. We'll just take one more question from the floor.
Hi, I'm Nika. I thank you so much for each person on stage talking about their different pathway into AI and machine learning. For more practical examples, can each of you share pathways for people who are trying to get into AI beyond just like jump in? Like what can people who are not currently in do to get into AI? Is that clear? Thank you.
I mean, we created sorry to cut you off, our host today through AI, and we are no experts. So I will just do a quick time check. We will take this question, and maybe Merrily can answer this, and Anitha, yeah, we can just have two of those speakers answer this question for you.
All right.
I specifically kind of wanted the two Google. Okay. Sorry, no defense. I was asking them because they had such unique responses that really resonated with me, and so I'm just thinking about other people who are trying to figure out, okay, great, now how do I bridge that gap to come in, because maybe I didn't major in math or physics, right? Maybe I majored in literature. How do I now come into AI?
I'll start with one example. Let's say you are English major, or you come from creative writing space. You can help with prompt engineering. That's a big field right now that's happening all over, and we need people who have that knowledge. As Amy was saying, that we are bringing lawyers to tech. There are like any field you pick, actually there is a role in AI, because we are trying to bring AI to every vertical possible. We need vertical domain experts. Without vertical domain experts, we don't know what looks good. When I ask an answer, hey, does this creative paragraph look good, or this? I will be the last person to judge that. We need people who actually are experts, who are professors, for example, English professors, literature professors, to make that assessment. So there's plenty of room for every field.
Yes, I think we are at time, but I can happily talk to you, after this session also. Yes, all kinds of fields, there is a huge demand. You just have to know where to look. For example, we did hire a lot of linguists. We needed a lot of linguists, and we were desperately looking for them, which we didn't have inside Google. Everybody were mostly engineers, and so there's the data is so skewed at that point. We needed like a lot of data from diverse population, diverse backgrounds who come from things, so it was very helpful. And like Meenu mentioned, there are many avenues to look into. I can talk to you more.
I will take one quick example. I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about how they are talking to insurance agents to collect that data to make an AI model about insurance. I was like, interesting. So data is power, and everybody has some specialized data in their heads, in their experiences. You can use that to make a career in AI, definitely.
Amazing. I'd love to hear from Merrily as well, so please go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a bootcamp and I teach people, and I'm happy to add anyone interested in for free in December. It's 2 weeks. Reach out to me. I'll give you a code.
Yeah, I will reach out to you. Amazing. We are on time. Thank you so much, each one of you, for being on the panel with us. If you have any questions, please reach out to them directly, and they will be able to answer any questions directly after the session as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.